you were in the first group, the first stage and the second stage. There were three stages. So there were three cues. The first cue was topical, and the second cue was very specific. A lot of that came out of the kind of data we got in the first stage, which was very surprising for all of us involved, given the topic. Brought up this amazing array of data. It could be grouped into several categories.
We did this project in February, March, and that was a blind target that I did for you. And I was able to extract extensive data, especially after I did my follow-on work that you assigned to me. And interesting data came up. I had desolate bases. I had a tower and a place that doesn't seem here on Earth. In my session, I never said that it was otherworldly, but in the analysis stage, it does look pretty uncanny and a bit weird. Yeah. And I would postulate that probably it's not around here. And I did get plenty of technology, things that can be described as electromagnetic radiation, a lot of maliciousness, so negative emotions and negative feelings and intents. Those were all common themes throughout my entire session work. And even my own reaction to the data was my reaction in session, like, you guys are gonna get me killed. So
but
yes.
you know, when it got to the second stage, the data reinforced itself from different sessions. And did you realize that from the first stage, Jason had drawn in stage 6? Did I ever talk to you about that? You saw that? Jason had a little, like a capsule. He described it as a capsule on a very rocky kind of, or a stark hill. And he had it sitting in a kind of a crater. And he had it with a little frill thing at the base and a little porthole. They weren't really portals on his, they were like vents running down the side, which is not so different to what you had. You had like portholes, I think, at one
Yeah,
time.
yeah, I
And,
remember that.
and then the most amazing thing about Jason's, because at the time we were looking at the data, we were looking at that, oh, it's a capsule and very weird. What's that got to do with anything? He had data which implied that it was a technology.
Definitely, definitely.
Metal, I'm not sure, I can't remember. But what he did have, which was amazing, was he had this shadow coming from it, and he had shadow labeled on his S6. It implies that there's a strong light source overhead, number one, probably outside, of course, under a strong light source. And for a shadow to be like that, and the shadow was, if I remember rightly, was a bit bigger than the actual capsule, that implied height, like a great height. When you look at it that way and you kind of think of it in a 3D way and you think of yourself, you can actually imagine that that was taken from a great distance, looking almost straight down on it. So it would look like a capsule, but in fact it could be very tall. It supported your data up in the tower amazingly so.
Yeah, basically, if I had to sum up all my data in three phrases or sentences, I would say like technology, maliciousness, and some kind of remote site. So those were the major themes in my data. And one thing that struck out to me is that when we did the group analysis and when we gathered and we each presented our own data and what we got, and we collaborated on the meaning of it all, what struck out to me was that three remote viewers explicitly said the word military in their session work, including me. So me and two other guys, we said the word military
That
in
was
our
in the
session.
first stage.
Yeah, the first
And
stage.
in the second stage, the same thing happened with other remote viewers, two remote viewers.
Yes.
Military came in. Wow. And there's the technology side of things. Now, how the hell does that have anything to do with the target that we started off with? That was a mind blowing thing, and that's how you set off the basis for me to
Yeah.
struck that second cue, which blew everyone's mind. But the data just echoes each other very clearly and cleanly.
A funny saying we have here in Bulgaria, which connects to your thought of pissing off people. And it has to do with uh, the fact that the more individualistic you become, the more agitators you create. So basically, in Bulgaria, we have this saying, modesty is for the faceless people. Modesty is for the faceless. So basically, if you want to offend no one, be nothing, do nothing, say nothing, uh, don't have an opinion, and so on. And everyone will like you. You will have a lot of friends, but this is not an enjoyable way to live life, in my opinion. That's my worldview.
Yeah, I agree. I tell you what, I come from an island country, New Zealand, and I've lived a few years too in another country, island country, Japan, and I can tell you that in both cases, they have sayings that approximate tall poppies get cut down first.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes, yes.
When I say they, I mean it's just a saying, but you really have to be brave to stand up in that kind of environment. But you know what? I think remote viewers, whether they like it or not, when they start remote viewing, they are standing out from the crowd. They're going where people don't want to go. And I think one thing about it, most often it's when you're especially within a team, not doing your own targets. You are remote viewing blind targets. And there'll be
Yes.
times when those blind targets are things that you really don't want to do. Like, for example, once I was set myself as a target. I mean, the team were all set themselves. And that's like, you think, oh, so what? But when you're actually having yourself read out at the end, at the discussion stage at the end, so it can lead to all kinds of problems. This blind targeting, and that's what happened basically during the.
Well, I think that these are the best kinds of targets because I think that uh, if if a project manager tasks me to remote view myself blindly, I think that the project manager is making me a huge favor. You get valuable insights about yourself and about your life.
Hmm.
And because you've done it blind and you've done it neutrally and objectively, you can trust your own data. So, as I said earlier in our conversation, I've been a remote viewer for 2 years now. And during those 2 years, I didn't dare remote view myself. There's nothing more I would like to do more than to remote view my own life, but I was afraid. I didn't trust myself. I didn't believe I could get the job done right. Because in order to do your job well as a remote viewer, you have to do two things. You have to be objective and neutral. The less you care about the data, the better the session will be. And when you know that the target is about you, it's very difficult to stay neutral and objective because emotions start kicking in and all that. I started remote viewing myself just recently. We're talking about 1 month ago. And it took me like 2 years to develop that confidence and professional detachment to remote view myself and to be confident that I will do the job well and that my data will be good enough and reliable enough. But before that, I didn't dare. And one of the very first targets that Stefan gave me blind was Theodore Manilov slash who question mark. And he told me, and whatever you get is your data, don't tell me. The data is just for you. And when he revealed the target, I knew why.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, thanks, man.
Well, I tell you what, I've had in my blind pool 300, I've had Jared, my death, and it's never come up. But I was dead to put that in there.
Yeah, that's something I would like to remote view for myself too, just out of sheer morbid curiosity. Something that I would like to share is that I am a huge fan of Stoic philosophy. It's something I enjoy reading and practicing. And one of the core tenets of Stoic philosophy is memento mori, which means from Latin, remember, you must die. And the whole point of memento mori is to remember that you are mortal and, and that you could even die tomorrow and let that determine how you will live today. And the point is not to demoralize you or to depress you, but to become more aware of your limitations and constraints so you appreciate life more. You appreciate your time more and you're more mindful and more conscious of what you do and that you don't take your life for granted, you know. And this isn't even about dying, like uh, just to be grateful that you're in good health, that you have enough money to live, for clothing, for a house, this internet connection, just to appreciate life itself and to be grateful and to not take it for granted and to spend your life wisely. This is what it is all about, not to depress. Oh, I'm gonna die. Oh, how horrible!
That's the perspective that I follow, especially after all my time spent in Japan. I studied kendo over there, practiced kendo several years, and they say to you when you go in there, you go with the samurai ethos. You're going to die, and so you can never enter a match unless you know absolutely that you can lose, because that's the only way you can open yourself up and really see the other opponent and see their
Yes.
soul. To see them deeply is to show yours. Without showing yours and opening up, you will never have a true, you never be able to rise above what you are. You need to be able to take a step forward in your kendo, you know.
Yes.
And that,
Very profound.
yeah, it's a philosophy like Stoic philosophy that's developed over time, you know, I guess hundreds of
Yes.
years. So it's been tested and proven. I think remote viewing will hopefully develop massively. Imagine what it's going to be like. It's really something quite recent, isn't it? I know that Russia and China have been doing something like this for a while. I don't know how long.
Oh, yeah.
But imagine what it's going to be like in about 20 years' time once people like yourself, you know, younger remote viewers have developed it and taken it in directions that can.
Yeah, early on in our conversation, you said that, oh, you've been a remote viewer for just 2 years. Wow, that's amazing. I thought you were doing it for many more years. That was your reaction.
Mhm.
But uh, make no mistake, that is not by accident. My success is not by accident. What my secret sauce is, and I think that this is something I would probably assume that almost no one else in the remote viewing community is doing. So this is something I am doing outside of my remote viewing practice, which helps me massively boost my performance as a remote viewer. And it's this: spiritual technology methods developed by Żyworad Slavinsky. He passed away several years ago after a lifetime of developing modern day spiritual practices. He was a Serbian, definitely a psychologist, but clinical, I'm not sure. He developed during the times of Yugoslavia, during Soviet times. And in his youth, he explored all spiritual disciplines on earth. He did massive research, and he was able to distill all of these spiritual disciplines to a fast and efficient formula that anyone can do. So you don't have to move away to an Asian monastery, abandon your worldly life, and dedicate your entire life with full devotion to the spiritual path. So he wanted to get that same result and enable the normal person to attain it much faster and much efficiently. Think about Ingleswan and Stargate, but for spirituality. So something like that happened in Serbia during the 80s and 90s. Żyworad developed a number of systems which he calls under the umbrella term spiritual technologies. Much like we say remote viewing as an umbrella term, but there are many types of remote, CRV, TRV, ERV, TDS, generic remote viewing, and all that. So yeah, that's an umbrella term, remote viewing. So spiritual technology is the same. So what does it do? So spiritual technology methods are designed to do two things: to enhance and speed up our spiritual development, and to liberate us from our everyday problems, emotional and psychological. So what does spiritual development mean? I want to define that quickly. Spiritual development means realizing your true self, to basically see through the matrix and to realize who you are. And who you are is pure consciousness, which is de-identified. Consciousness, as we know from remote viewing, exists outside time and space. Your consciousness is one with the entire universe, or how we say in remote viewing, the matrix, which contains all that is in as a pattern of information. So this is amazing because remote viewing says mind is outside space and time, and Żyworad says mind is outside space and time. Remote viewing says, well, Russell Tark in his talk says that we are one with everything. And this is why we are capable to perceive information which is outside of us. And Żyworad says, you are one with the universe. Separation is an illusion. And the job of spiritual development is to dissolve the illusion of separation and to attain oneness, de-identified consciousness, and depolarized consciousness. So consciousness outside of polarities. Polarities such as right and wrong, good and evil, man, woman, hot, cold, I, not I, or I in the outer world, or abundance, poverty, like health, sickness, it's infinite. So what spiritual technology does is it dissolves the illusion of separation and it clears the ego. The ego, which is the domain of the subconscious mind, suppressed thoughts and emotions, which are in our subconscious mind. And these things run our life. If you have read Ingo Swan's books, he talks about the mechanisms that make remote viewing possible. Like you have your unconscious mind, which is connected to the matrix, and Ingo calls it your ESP core, your ESP core. And that ESP core is sending you data to the conscious mind. However, the data gets filtered through the subconscious, which is domain of the ego. It's filtered through thoughts, emotions, beliefs you have about the world, and a reduced amount of that information gets to the conscious mind, and you get a fraction of the information. So this is a huge barrier that remote viewers face, in my opinion. And I've been using spiritual technologies to clear my ego mass. For example, if I am afraid of people, if I am an antisocial person, I am very introverted and all that, if you give me a remote viewing target, a blind one, that has people, in my data, I won't report the people because I am afraid of them. And as the data goes, my subconscious goes, oh, no, 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 no. Theodore doesn't want to know that. Let's skip that. But omissions are considered a remote viewing mistake. You are supposed to report all the data down to the last detail. So this is something I've been doing for myself. I was using spiritual technology methods to clear my emotions, insecurities, and beliefs about the world, to make me more neutral, to make me calmer. And this made a massive difference in my remote viewing sessions. Because in the past, I would like, oh my God, what if I screw up the session? Oh man, what if the set of the target is this or that? Oh, I hate this kind of data. And all this worry and running analysis, which I can't help, ruin the session or distort the information that comes. But now I've done so much internal work over the past year or so that I don't care. Like, I don't care at all. I'm completely clean and neutral, and I just allow myself to listen to the voice of the universe, if that metaphor makes sense. And I legitimately do not care what the target is or what it has. So this is something that helped me massively, and also to overcome my personal hurdles. Like, I had insecurities like, oh man, I suck as a remote viewer. Who am I to do this? It's going to be bad. I'm not good at this. I'm an embarrassment. My data is embarrassing. No one should see it. I shouldn't present myself. I used the spiritual technology methods to clean myself up so that I can go after my goals. And my goal is to be a professional remote viewer and to be one of the best and to be world class, to be able to pursue this endeavor without internal obstacles and just to do whatever needs to be done.
Yeah,
So this is my,
yeah.
yeah, and this is my agenda. But the point is that spiritual technology methods made that possible for me. They help me massively, and I believe that they can help anyone listening to this. The methodology is pretty obscure. It's pretty obscure. So it's an Eastern European thing, self-improvement systems that
Mm,
is really, really powerful. In my opinion, nothing compares. I've been into self-improvement since age 16, basically. Now I'm 33. And I've seen it all, like NLP, hypnosis, Silva method, and the results were bleak and unimpressive. And I've been seriously practicing spiritual technology methods since 2018. So that would make 7 years. So this is another one of my big life skills that I have outside of remote viewing. And I'm saying that, I mean, I deem it important to talk about spiritual technologies because remote viewing and spiritual technologies, they are both mind-based. In both methods, you directly work with your own consciousness. Your own consciousness is the tool. In remote viewing, you access information that comes from the hypothesized signal line coming from the matrix. So when you do a remote viewing session, the data is coming from outside and you objectify it on paper. In spiritual technologies, you still work with your own mind, but you're exploring yourself and the deepest layers of your ego. So the ego is like an onion in layers. And trust me, you have absolutely no idea what you have in your deepest layers. We're talking extremely old layers of the mind that were developed in early childhood and even past lives and parallel existences. In spiritual technologies, you work just with your mind, just like RV. There are no altered states of mind. You are fully aware and you just sit down. You can guide yourself, or you can have another person guiding you who is more experienced if you're not experienced. In my case, I am fully trained in spiritual technology. So I am both the therapist and the client at the same time. So I'm doing it on myself. You pull out layers of your subconscious mind, and when they come out to the light of awareness, they dissolve and they no longer run your life. And those automatic subconscious programs are gone. And awareness is back into the picture and you are free. Something I wanted to share, and I think that nobody else in the RV community is doing this. I might be either the only one or one of the very few.
well,
I still haven't met anyone else who does that. But if anyone watching this hears this and they know what I'm talking about, please, by all means, get in touch with me. I would very much love to talk with
yeah,
you and to
yeah,
exchange our experiences.
I'll definitely put your contact details under the video. But I also hope that people can actually make a few comments underneath
Yeah.
here and mention, if you have been doing this kind of thing to help your remote viewing. One thing I was going to say is there's a neuroscientist, Donald Hoffman. He's got quite a few
Mm-hmm.
videos on YouTube. He says interesting things about consciousness, and it feeds quite well, I think, into what you're saying. He'd look at this thing a little differently, but his idea of consciousness is that consciousness is like this big blob. As I understand it, this is what he thinks. Consciousness is like this big blob. We're all part of it. Everything, I suppose
Yes.
you could say, everything living is part of it, no matter where it is in this universe. The consciousness that we assume we have inside of us is actually outside of us. We're like
Yes.
walking aerials. He puts it this way: we are like avatars. We see the world through our eyes, we sense it through our touch and taste and smell and other, the natural abilities we have and the intuition, I guess. So, but we read it according to the limitations of what we're able to perceive. And so we don't really understand that the consciousness, this thing we see as ourselves, is actually something that's we're all part of. It's outside of ourselves. And
Exactly.
I suppose in a way you kind of jump the unconsciousness effort. If it's not the word I was looking for, concept, because we're automatically plugged into this great big consciousness. Yeah, he's a really interesting person to hear talk. He's got a couple of videos that are easily accessible on YouTube. I just find this whole area that you're talking about incredibly interesting, and it's what makes remote viewing such a I'm so rapt to be part of it, and you are obviously too. To have this, to have learnt this skill, and to have it in our lives. I mean, there's still massive
Yeah.
issues in the world we can't change. We'd love to change, but the ability to actually see that we can connect with everything around us in this way is just incredible. I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I have this favorite saying, your level of self-awareness determines whether you will be the master of your reality or the pawn of reality. Self-awareness is key. One objection that people usually have against this idea, because one of my top 5 life values is truth. Whatever I do in life, I want to know the truth. And people tell me, oh, Theodore, aren't you depressed all the time from knowing the truth? Don't you get headaches from thinking too hard about these things? And I'm like, no, no, because the truth sets me free. And you're missing the point, because truth at its core is neutral. It's neither good nor bad, neither positive nor negative. Pure truth is neutral. Bad or good is in the eyes of the beholder. So if a person sees the truth as something bad or good, they haven't learned anything at all, because they are still filtering information through their own subjectivity and unresolved childhood trauma, or at least trauma from earlier in life. This is something that people need to confront and overcome so they can finally be free and open their eyes. At least this is what I have done, in which I have fought to do for the past 6 years, and I believe that I'm achieving it. I'm not afraid to know anything, and I want to know the truth, whatever it may be. And the good thing about a neutral thing is that you can take something which is neutral and you can take a look at it from 1,000 different viewpoints, and it would still remain neutral. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. That's it. Exactly. I do think though that there's a lot of people in the world who would rather not know the truth, and they're frightened people. They are frightened and they hide it with reactions that are angry, and they're the people.
Those the things that you describe, I describe them as cages for consciousness. So basically, you have your infinite consciousness and you put it in this cage, which is made up of the bars are made up of hardened energy, and that hardened energy is suppressed negative emotions, false identities people have about themselves, and false beliefs and expectations about reality. However, people cling to them and don't want to let go of them, and thus they remain in the cage forever. And they are limited to whatever experiences that space allows them.
That's right. And I think that's part of the way that we are often used, programmed. After the show we did the other week, one of us mentioned, you'll remember that, how remote viewing is actually
Suppressed.
suppressed. Yes, and remote viewers are beginning to twig to this if they haven't already. People with even certainly not this show. It's not the case of this show, unfortunately, but uh, shows like this one or ones that have been running much longer with thousands of subscribers, getting very few subscribers is just a complete cut off. So it's become fairly obvious now that we're not, I mean, in general, it's not desirable to have us knowledgeable about truth, to have us aware of truth because we just won't be controllable.
I have this theory of where the world is headed and what our near term future is. We started talking about the truth and how important is the truth.
Mm.
And mm, I don't want to use the word prediction. I think that I want to use the word forecast. I think forecast would be, or prognosis would be a more accurate word. It's going to be increasingly difficult to discern between what is real or not for this reason. Because we started talking about the truth and how important is the truth. And I don't want to use the word prediction. I think that I want to use the word forecast. I think forecast would be, or prognosis
Mm.
would be a more accurate word. It's going to be increasingly difficult to discern between what is real or not. Because when the internet area first hit, suddenly online, there was a huge boom of information. Everyone had access to the infinite source of information that is the internet. Yeah, the vast library. However, the problem is that there is a lot of misinformation on the internet and disinformation, and a huge chunk of it is false. And this is a problem. Even people 5, 6 years ago had trouble distinguishing between what is real or not. Now people talk about fake news and all that stuff. Now we have AI, and things are going to get much, much, much worse. That problem is going to be increased 1,000-fold. And even even AI, not only that it generates so much content that people nowadays complain, oh, AI is straight up lying. There are many people who are not experts and they cannot discern that what ChatGPT is telling them is not true. Now, I am 33 years old. I am from the generation that grew up on the border between the old world, the pre-digitalization of the world. I still grew up in that area. And in my adolescence, I got into the digital world. However, because of my upbringing and my education, I know how to think for myself and how to have that work ethic, and I know how to use my brain and how to think. However, due to the increased automation and AI replacing thinking jobs, the generations after me will have a harder and a harder time to develop their own thinking. And because the artificial intelligence will do the thinking for them. Compound that problem with all that AI generated content, which may or may not be true, but people cannot even discern it. And what's worse is that AI will be able to perfectly replicate photos of people, even voices. They do it right now, actually. And it will even make super accurate and lifelike deep fakes of video. So not even phone calls or Zoom meetings will be proof that you are talking to a true human being. And this will become a super huge problem. And this is the moment where they will enforce mandatory digital identity.
Oh, they're doing that already, yeah.
Because this will be the only way you will be able to prove that what's coming from you is truly coming from you, to be able to discern between real human data and what is artificially generated. And through the personal digital profile, they will be able to tell which person generated what using AI. So in this scenario, the only thing that will save you is methods such as remote viewing, because your intuition never lies to you. I very much like to quote Ed Dames. He says that a lot. And I also believe it with my whole heart, that your unconscious mind is your best friend. And it's always speaking to you through your intuition, because your unconscious mind always has your best interest in mind. And it's sending you signals all the time through intuition and into dreams. And by learning remote viewing, we learn to consciously tap into that data stream. So I think that skills such as remote viewing and even spiritual technologies will be our salvation in the future, as more and more emphasis is placed on digital technologies and less emphasis is placed here on the human mind and consciousness, which mainstream science wants to stay away from, or at least not to talk about it publicly. So this is my take on the future. Again, that's my personal opinion. That's how I see things. Please, anyone, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I'm always opening to learn.
Well, on that note, I just like to thank you for coming on the show, Theodore. It's been amazing. You are a true talent and a real spokesperson for remote viewing. I mean, you are the young, up-and-coming remote viewer that we all want to emulate, really. I'm really happy to have met you and worked with you, and that it's just been great. So we have to do this again sometime.
Absolutely, yeah.
Is there something in particular, a product or website that you have that you want to mention right now?
I will just share Jivarat's flagship website. There are obviously several trainers who are active today, but I just want to share the main thing. So the website is jivaratslavinsky.com.
And do you have your own website at all? Do you offer remote viewing training?
Not at this time, but you could. At this time, I still don't have a website, but you could link my Facebook page. On occasion, I share valuable remote viewing. For those of you who will say, oh, Theodore is just doing front-loaded sessions, because those are the major examples I gave. I also do a lot of blind photo targets, so I have no idea of knowing what they are. I do those sessions, and the particularly good ones, I post them on my Facebook page from time to time, so people can get a sense of my remote viewing work. So, yeah, I just didn't see it as that interesting to talk about how I describe random photos for training purpose. Just link my Facebook. At this time, yeah, this is sufficient.
All right. Well, thank you very much. It's been brilliant. People will have had so much information, it's almost information overload, especially your information about spiritual technology and how you use that to
Yes.
enhance your own remote viewing. It's obviously working incredibly well. I'll let you go and we'll talk again.
Yes.